Captain Zexai stood in the command chamber of his flagship, staring at the blue planet on the main screen. Earth looked small from this distance. Soft, white clouds drifted across wide oceans. Green and brown land masses shone under the light of their sun. It looked peaceful, fragile. It did not look like a threat. "Report," Zexai said calmly, though his fingers were tight behind his back. "All 300 warships in formation, Captain," his second officer replied. "Weapons charged, awaiting your command." Behind them, the great fleet of the Galactic Coalition stretched across space like a wall of steel. They had crushed empires older than Earth's civilization. They had ended rebellions in hours. The humans were young, barely 50 years into interstellar travel, divided, emotional, violent with each other. Easy. Zexai had studied the intelligence files. Human ships were simple, their weapons outdated, their governments chaotic. This mission was meant to be a lesson. "Advance," he ordered. The fleet moved forward, blotting out the stars. Plasma cannons hummed with rising energy. This would be quick. Then the sensor officer stiffened. "Captain, we are detecting structures around the planet." Zexai frowned. "Explain." "Metal platforms in orbit, hundreds of them. Construction appears recent." "Defense stations?" Zexai gave a short laugh. "How predictable." Before he could say more, new signals flashed across the board. Multiple vessels emerging from behind their moon. On the screen, nearly 50 human ships appeared. They were sleeker than the reports had shown. Dark hulls, smooth curves. They moved fast, too fast. "They are charging weapons," the tactical officer warned. "Let them fire," Zexai said with confidence. The first human beams struck. 3 coalition ships vanished in explosions of light. Silence filled the bridge. "How?" Zexai snapped. "Shields failed instantly, Captain. Energy readings are unknown." More human ships dropped into the battlefield from unexpected angles. They twisted and turned in ways that broke standard flight patterns. Coalition targeting systems struggled to lock on. Then the platforms around Earth activated. Blue light flashed across space. Where it touched, Coalition ships did not explode. They disappeared. No debris, no signal. Gone. "Captain," the second officer whispered, fear shaking his voice. "We've lost 100 ships in 8 minutes." Zexai felt something unfamiliar rising in his chest. Doubt. A transmission cut through every frequency. "Coalition Fleet, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of Earth Defense Command. You have attacked without cause. Withdraw now and no further harm will come to you." Zexai stepped forward. "The Coalition does not retreat from primitives." A brief pause. "Then you have chosen your consequences." The battle intensified. Human ships attacked larger vessels without hesitation. Even damaged ships rammed into targets if needed. But it was not reckless. It was coordinated, almost as if every pilot shared one mind. For every human ship destroyed, 5 coalition ships were erased. Hours passed. Pride turned into panic. Remaining operational ships, 72, the officer reported, out of 300. Zexai stared at the shrinking battlefield. He could continue and lose everything, or survive to report. "Order full retreat," he said quietly. The remaining coalition ships limped toward their jump point. The humans did not pursue. They simply watched. As Zexai's fleet prepared to enter hyperspace, every communication channel across coalition territory activated at once. The same message echoed in every known language. "This is Earth. You attacked our world without warning. We defended ourselves. Hear this clearly." The voice turned colder. "You attacked us again. We will not stop at defense. We will erase your fleets, your weapons, and every system that threatens us." A pause. This is not anger, this is certainty." The message repeated 3 times, then silence returned to space. Zexai watched Earth shrink behind him as his damaged ship jumped away. That small blue world was no longer harmless. Something had changed in the galaxy, and deep in his mind, one thought refused to fade. What if the humans had been holding back? But the Coalition would not accept humiliation, and 3 years later they would test Earth again, believing the humans had grown weak.
3 years passed after the failed invasion of Earth. To the rest of the galaxy, it looked like nothing had changed. Earth rebuilt its cities. Trade ships moved between colonies. Lights glowed warmly on the planet's surface each night. Human broadcasts showed festivals, elections, sports, and daily life. It appeared normal, peaceful, predictable. Inside the Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Coalition, High Commander Vexar stood before a massive hologram of Earth. "They have returned to routine activity," he said. "Civilian traffic is steady, no major fleet movements detected. Their orbital platforms remain in place but show minimal activity." Senator Clixera clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. "Their warning was emotional. Primitive species often exaggerate strength after victory. They struck us hard once. That does not mean they can do it again." Murmurs of agreement filled the chamber. "They lost ships too," another leader added. "They are rebuilding just as we are." What the Coalition did not see were the places their sensors could not reach. Beneath Earth's deepest oceans, hidden inside shielded caverns, enormous construction projects were underway. Entire facilities had been built where no satellite could scan. The oceans concealed everything. In one such chamber, Dr. Rebecca Martinez stood before a ring structure taller than a mountain. "It's stable," she said quietly. General Park folded his arms. "How many operational?" 27 complete, 28 in testing. We will need at least 50. These were not defense stations. They were quantum gateways. Devices capable of moving fleets instantly across vast distances without traveling through normal space. Human engineers worked day and night in silence. No public announcement, no celebration, just steady preparation. Above ground, Earth appeared relaxed. Below ground, it was sharpening its blade. Across the galaxy, human agents moved quietly through Coalition worlds. Advanced biological disguise technology allowed them to pass as alien species. Their voices, movements, even scent markers were perfect copies. Agent Sarah Kim worked as a language analyst inside Coalition headquarters. She listened to classified discussions daily. "They believe we are afraid. Fleet reconstruction estimated at 4 more years. Some leaders suggest a limited strike to test our defenses sooner." On another world, Agent Marcus Webb served inside a Coalition military logistics division. New patrol units forming, small-scale aggression likely before full invasion. Back on Earth, Admiral Sarah Chen stood inside an underground war command center. A holographic map of the galaxy covered the walls. Red markers showed Coalition military bases. Blue markers showed human agents. Green markers marked neutral or potentially friendly species. "Status," she said calmly. 200 advanced strike vessels complete," Captain Torres replied. "Phase cannons installed, quantum drives calibrated, cloaking systems active." "And consciousness transfer?" asked Chen. Dr. Martinez stepped forward. "Operational. If any agent dies, their neural imprint can be restored in a new body, memory intact." Humanity had learned something important 3 years ago. Survival required preparation beyond imagination. The coalition had grown comfortable over centuries of easy victories. They relied on overwhelming force. They assumed enemies would panic. Humans did not panic. They adapted. They studied captured coalition wreckage. They reverse-engineered alien shields. They improved plasma systems. They developed weapons that did not destroy matter. They removed it. Most important of all, they built strategy. Every possible coalition response had been simulated thousands of times. "We do not strike first," Admiral Chen reminded her staff, "but when they cross the line again, we end the threat permanently." General Park nodded. "Agents are in position on 12 major worlds." "And smaller systems?" Chen asked. "Monitored. No unusual fleet buildup yet." Silence filled the room. Humanity waited. They did not want conquest. They wanted certainty. Weeks later, in the outer regions of Coalition space, Captain Mortex of the patrol ship Starfire scanned an isolated sector. "Long-range contact," his officer said. "Human vessel, small, civilian classification, engine damage." Mortex leaned forward slowly. Opportunity. "Any escort?" "None." A thin smile crossed his face. "Open communication channel." Far away, Admiral Chen received an emergency transmission from a human colony ship named New Dawn. Coalition vessel approaching, weapons locking. For a brief moment, her eyes closed. "They chose," she whispered. When the Coalition patrol fired, the human colony ship exploded in a burst of silent light. 300 civilians gone in seconds. Mortex recorded the destruction proudly. He believed it was a message. He did not know Earth had expected this move. Deep beneath Earth's surface, alarms lit up the command center. Admiral Chen's voice carried through every secured channel. "Operation Iron Horizon is active." Across 12 Coalition worlds, hidden human agents received the same coded signal. In bathrooms, in offices, in military halls, devices activated. Shield generators began to fail. Defense grids flickered. And in deep space, invisible gateways started to open. Reality itself bent quietly, preparing to answer murder with precision. What happened next would last only 7 minutes, but those 7 minutes would break the coalition forever.
The moment the colony ship was destroyed, the galaxy believed the message was clear. Humans were still vulnerable. The coalition had reasserted dominance. But they misunderstood something very important. Earth had not reacted with rage. It had reacted with timing. Across 12 Coalition core worlds, hidden devices activated at once. Shield grids flickered, defense satellites glitched, command networks slowed by fractions of seconds. Just enough. In deep space, quantum gateways opened without light, without sound. They did not tear space apart. They folded it gently. From each gateway emerged black human warships, silent, cold, invisible to standard Coalition sensors. Above the Coalition capital world, Admiral Sarah Chen's flagship, Resolute Dawn, appeared directly inside the outer defense perimeter. "Target confirmed," Captain Torres said calmly. "Begin strike sequence," Chen replied. At exactly the same second, across 12 systems, human fleets began their attack. Phase cannons fired first. Coalition shields did not shatter. They simply failed, as if the energy protecting them had never existed. Orbital defense platforms vanished in pulses of distorted blue light. No debris, no warning. On Vex Prime, General Fexmore stared through his office window as 3 massive shipyards disappeared in less than 10 seconds. "Report," he shouted. "Unknown vessels inside our perimeter," an aide cried. "Our targeting systems cannot lock. Our scanners cannot see them." Human ships moved like shadows. They fired once per target. No wasted shots. No civilian structures touched. Weapons factories dissolved into clouds of particles. Military bases blinked out of existence. Command centers lost power as quantum disruptors erased entire networks. The coalition tried to respond. Missiles launched blindly. Plasma cannons fired at empty space. One lucky blast struck a human cruiser. The hull shimmered, repaired itself in seconds, and the ship continued forward without slowing. On the coalition homeworld of Kareth, citizens looked up at the sky in confusion. There were no explosions in cities, no falling debris. Only military structures were disappearing. It was precise, intentional. 7 minutes. That was all it took. 600 coalition military installations across 12 worlds were neutralized. 300 warships under construction were reduced to dust. Communication arrays collapsed. Weapon depots gone. Fleet command shattered. Then, as suddenly as it began, the human attack stopped. Human ships did not celebrate. They did not pursue retreating vessels. They simply held position. Across every screen in Coalition space, Admiral Chen appeared. Her voice was calm. 3 years ago, you attacked Earth. We defended ourselves and warned you. She paused. Today, you destroyed an unarmed colony ship and murdered 300 civilians. Behind her, the wreckage of Coalition shipyards drifted in orbit. We have removed your ability to wage war. We targeted only military assets. Your cities stand untouched, your populations unharmed. She leaned slightly forward. That restraint was a choice. Silence filled the coalition command halls. If you harm another human citizen, we will not limit our response. We will erase every structure capable of threatening us permanently. Her eyes did not show anger, only certainty. You have seen what 7 minutes can do. The transmission ended. Human fleets vanished back through quantum gateways, leaving stunned governments and powerless militaries behind. In the Grand Assembly Hall, High Commander Vexar stood frozen. Reports flooded in from every system. Shipyard destroyed, defense grid offline, weapons production at 0 capacity. How many ships did they use? Someone demanded. Approximately 50 per system. Total estimate? 600. That is impossible, Vexar whispered. Our intelligence estimated fewer than 100 total. No one answered, because no one understood. The coalition had built its power over centuries. Humans had dismantled it in minutes. General Fexmore slammed his fist onto the table. "This is not war," he said hoarsely. "This is domination." But even he knew something deeper. The humans had not tried to conquer. They had demonstrated control, and control was more frightening than rage. In space above the coalition capital, debris drifted slowly where once powerful shipyards had stood. Civilian lights still glowed peacefully below. Life continued, but something fundamental had shifted. For the first time in coalition history, they were no longer the strongest force in the galaxy. They were vulnerable. And every leader in that chamber understood the same terrible truth. If humans had wanted revenge instead of restraint, billions would already be dead. But the coalition's greatest shock was still coming, because the humans had not only struck from without, they had been inside all along.
The Grand Assembly Hall had never felt so cold. Coalition leaders from 12 species argued loudly, fear breaking through their usual discipline. Emergency reports continued to flood the chamber. Our fleets are crippled. Weapons production at 0. Outer defenses completely compromised. High Commander Vexar raised his hands for silence. but his authority felt weaker than ever. "How?" he demanded. "How did they coordinate 12 simultaneous strikes without detection?" Admiral Rexon stepped forward slowly. There were no fleet movements, no hyperspace signatures. They appeared inside our defensive perimeters. "That is impossible," General Fexmore snapped. "Nothing can bypass our detection grids." A calm voice echoed from the rear of the chamber. "You are correct. Nothing can bypass them." Every head turned. A tall woman in a blue diplomatic uniform walked down the center aisle. She moved without hurry, without fear. But something can disable them from within. Security guards rushed forward, weapons raised. Their rifles would not fire. The woman stopped beneath the central lights. "My name is Ambassador Elena Rodriguez," she said clearly, "representative of Earth." Shock rippled through the hall. "How did you enter this chamber?" Vexar demanded. "I did not enter," she replied softly. "I have been here for 3 years." She touched a small device on her wrist. Her appearance flickered. The form of Senator Clixara, who sat 2 seats away, glitched like a broken hologram. Gasps filled the hall. The senator dissolved into light. The woman standing before them remained human. "The real Senator Clixara died in a transport accident 3 years ago," Rodriguez explained. "We preserved her neural pattern, studied her public behavior, and replaced her." Chaos erupted. "You replaced a sitting council member?" Fexmore shouted. "We replaced 27, Rodriguez corrected calmly. Around the hall, several leaders suddenly flickered and shifted. The defense minister transformed into a human man. The head of intelligence became a human woman. 2 security officers revealed themselves as human agents. 27 trusted officials had been human operatives for years. "You," Vexar staggered back, "you infiltrated our highest command?" Rodriguez met his gaze steadily. "You attacked Earth without understanding your opponent. We adapted." She walked slowly across the chamber. "For 3 years, our agents listened to every strategic discussion. We learned your weaknesses, your production schedules, your fleet rebuilding plans, your internal political divisions." "You corrupted our systems," Admiral Rexon whispered. "No," Rodriguez said firmly. "We studied them." She raised her wrist again. Suddenly, every leader in the chamber was surrounded by a faint red glow. A soft hum filled the air. "What is this?" someone whispered. "You are currently targeted by quantum-positioned weapons, not in orbit, not on your surface, in adjacent quantum layers you cannot detect." Panic spread across faces. There are 10,000 such devices active across Coalition space, each aimed at a key military or government figure. Fexmore's voice trembled with anger. "You threaten assassination?" Rodriguez shook her head slightly. "No, I demonstrate capability." The red glow pulsed softly around each leader. "One command from Earth, and every individual who could restart a war would cease to exist." Silence crushed the room. "But we do not want to kill you," she added quietly. "We want you to understand." She looked directly at Vexar. "You destroyed a colony ship. You tested whether our warning was real." Her voice grew firmer. "Now you know." Vexar swallowed hard. "What do you want?" "Simple terms," Rodriguez replied. "The Galactic Coalition will disband its military alliance. You will sign a peace treaty recognizing Earth as the primary defensive authority in this region. You will open borders for trade and cooperation, and you will compensate the families of those murdered." "Never," Fexmore growled. Rodriguez gave a small, almost sad smile. "I hoped you would say that." She tapped her communicator. Authorization code Terra 7 Alpha. Confirm target lock. The red glow intensified. Several leaders gasped. The air itself felt heavy. You have 1 hour to decide, Rodriguez said calmly. Accept partnership and live, or reject it and end. She began walking towards the exit. No guards can stop me, she added gently. Their weapons have been disabled. At the doorway, she paused. 3 years ago, we warned you not to attack again. Her eyes swept across the chamber. Today, you learned we keep promises. She left. The red targeting glow remained. And for the first time in coalition history, its leaders understood something terrifying. They were not negotiating from strength. They were surviving by permission. With 1 hour to choose between surrender or extinction, the most powerful alliance in the galaxy faced its greatest decision, and not all of them were ready to accept peace.
The red glow did not burn. It did not hurt, but it pressed against the minds of every coalition leader like an invisible weight. High Commander Vexar stood in the center of the chamber, staring at the faint light surrounding his hands. 1 hour, he whispered. General Fexmore slammed his fist onto the table again. This is intimidation. We still have civilian fleets. We still have planetary defenses. Those defenses were disabled in 7 minutes, Admiral Rexon replied quietly, and that was without civilian casualties. The room fell silent again. For centuries, the coalition had believed it was untouchable. Smaller civilizations surrendered at the sight of their fleets. Even advanced rivals had eventually fallen, but Earth had done something different. Earth had shown restraint that frightened them more than destruction would have. If they wanted to wipe us out, Rexon continued, they could have done it already. Fexmore paced angrily. Or this is a bluff, a psychological tactic. Is it? Vexar asked. No one answered. Reports continued to arrive from across coalition space. Military shipyards gone, weapons stockpiles neutralized, command networks offline, civilian systems untouched. It was too precise to be random. They struck only military targets, one counselor said slowly, even during simultaneous attacks. That requires discipline, another added, and control, Rexon finished. Fexmore stopped pacing. If we surrender, we lose everything we built. Vexar turned toward him. If we refuse, we may lose our entire civilization. Silence. For the first time, the coalition leaders were not discussing conquest, they were discussing survival. A junior minister spoke up nervously. What if Earth becomes tyrannical later? What guarantees do we have? Vexar considered that. 3 years ago, Earth had warned them and then allowed them to leave. Today, Earth had destroyed their military and spared their cities. Actions spoke louder than fear. They could have targeted population centers. They chose not to. Fexmore looked around the hall. The red glow pulsed slowly around each leader like a ticking clock. If we accept, he said through clenched teeth, we admit they are stronger. They are stronger, Vexar replied softly. The question is whether they are also wiser. Time passed heavily. 20 minutes. 30. Outside the chamber, news had already spread. Citizens were confused but alive. No bombs had fallen on homes, no cities burned. For the first time in living memory, the coalition faced an enemy who did not want territory. They wanted behavior to change. 45 minutes. Vexar finally spoke again. We must ask ourselves one question, he said quietly. What future do we want for our children? Fexmore looked away. He had lost shipyards, fleets, decades of work, but he had not lost his family. The red glow remained steady. 55 minutes. Vexar straightened his posture.
"Prepare treaty documentation," he ordered. Gasps echoed through the hall. "You cannot be serious," Vexmore whispered. "I am entirely serious," Vexar replied. "We misjudged Earth once. We will not misjudge them again." The final minutes ticked down. At exactly 1 hour, the red glow around them faded. Ambassador Rodriguez re-entered the chamber. Her expression was calm. "Have you decided?" she asked. Vexar stepped forward. "Yes." He took a deep breath. "The Galactic Coalition agrees to dissolve its military alliance and enter into a formal peace agreement under Earth's defensive authority." A long silence followed. Rodriguez studied his face carefully. "No hidden fleet preparations?" she asked. "None," Vexar replied. "You have already removed that possibility." She nodded once. "Then we begin a new chapter." General Vexmore looked at her sharply. "And if we break the treaty?" Rodriguez's eyes hardened slightly. "Then we end the chapter." No threat in her voice, just certainty. Within days, the Treaty of Sol was drafted, written on materials from both Earth and Coalition worlds, symbolizing shared responsibility. Military factories would be converted, fleets disarmed or integrated into joint patrol units, borders opened for scientific and economic exchange, compensation transferred to the families of the destroyed colony ship. It was not surrender in chains, it was surrender under watch. When High Commander Vexar finally signed the treaty, his hand trembled. The 1,000-year dominance of the Galactic Coalition ended with a quiet stroke of ink. But something else began, because for the first time in its history, the galaxy would be led not by conquest, but by consequence. Yet peace under human leadership would test both sides, because proving strength in war is easy, proving fairness in victory is much harder.
3 months after the Treaty of Sol was signed, the galaxy looked different. Not destroyed, not occupied, changed. Massive coalition weapon factories no longer produced plasma cannons. Instead, they manufactured medical equipment, agricultural machines, and long-range exploration vessels. Shipyards that once built warships now constructed cargo carriers and research cruisers. The transformation was not forced at gunpoint. It was supervised. On the former coalition world of Fex Minor, General Vexmore stood beside a human engineer named Janet Walsh. Before them stretched the skeletal frame of a new city district. "This was once a weapons plant," Vexmore said quietly. Janet nodded. "Now it will house 20,000 families." Construction drones moved swiftly, guided by human and alien teams working side by side. Vexmore still felt the sting of defeat, but he could not deny what he saw. "Why help us rebuild?" he finally asked. "We attacked you, twice." Janet looked at him calmly. "Because punishment creates resentment, and resentment creates future wars." Vexmore frowned. "You fear rebellion." "No," said Janet softly. "We fear repeating history." On Earth, Admiral Chen had been promoted to Supreme Commander of Galactic Defense. The title sounded powerful, but her fleet was smaller than before. Highly advanced, strategically placed, rarely used. Her ships patrolled quietly along former conflict zones, responding to emergencies rather than provoking them. During her weekly briefing, Captain Torres spoke first. Sector Rial trade dispute resolved through arbitration. Centauri system food shortage stabilized with supply shipments. No military mobilizations detected anywhere in monitored space. Chen allowed herself a small breath of relief. Peace was fragile, but it was holding. Meanwhile, scientific cooperation accelerated faster than anyone predicted. Dr. Rebecca Martinez led a multi-species research team on an ambitious project, planetary restoration. Using advanced quantum field generators, they began repairing ecosystems once damaged by coalition wars. On the devastated world of Karthus, where weapons testing had poisoned oceans centuries ago, clean water flowed again. Extinct plant species were reintroduced. Alien scientists watched in disbelief. "You restore planets you once threatened to destroy?" one asked Martinez. "We restore planets so no one feels the need to threaten again," she answered. Trade flourished across systems that had once feared each other. Cultural exchange programs allowed students from dozens of species to study on Earth. Some were suspicious at first. They expected dominance. Instead, they found partnership. Ambassador Rodriguez became Earth's senior diplomatic representative to the former coalition. Unlike before, she wore no disguises. Trust now required visibility. At the newly expanded Galactic Council building in New York, representatives from over 50 species gathered weekly. The old coalition command structure had been replaced with open debate, votes, transparency. It was messy, it was slow, but it worked. When a newly contacted species called the Kalari asked Earth's intentions directly, Rodriguez answered without hesitation. "We do not demand loyalty. We offer cooperation. If you wish to remain independent, you may. If you wish to trade, we welcome you." "And if we choose hostility?" the Kalari leader asked cautiously. Rodriguez held steady eye contact. "Then we defend ourselves." Nothing more. The message was clear. Peace was offered. Consequences remained. Back in former coalition space, many citizens began to notice something unexpected. Crime dropped. Trade routes expanded. Scientific discoveries increased through shared research. For the first time in centuries, young coalition citizens grew up without hearing constant war propaganda. Still, not everyone was satisfied. General Fexmore sometimes stood alone at night, staring at the stars. He had spent his life building fleets. Now he supervised urban planning committees. It felt smaller, yet safer. One evening, he received a secure message. A small group of former coalition officers were discussing resistance. They believed Earth's leadership was temporary weakness. Fexmore studied the message carefully. 3 years ago, he would have supported them. Now he deleted it. He had seen what 7 minutes could do. He had seen what restraint could mean. On Earth, Admiral Chen stood on the observation deck of Galactic Defense Headquarters, watching ships arrive from distant systems. Alien vessels moved peacefully through orbit. Trade, exploration, tourism. 3 years ago, those same skies had been filled with invasion fleets. Now they carried diplomats and scientists. She remembered the warning she had delivered. "Attack us again, and you will be destroyed." At the time, it had been necessary. Now it had become something else. A boundary, not a threat. In the deepest layers of space, hidden quantum weapons still existed, silent, undetectable. Insurance. No one advertised them, but everyone knew. And that knowledge kept the peace. Yet Chen understood something most did not. Peace built on fear alone would not last forever. If Earth truly wanted a stable galaxy, it had to offer more than strength. It had to offer purpose. But while the galaxy adjusted to its new balance, something unexpected was beginning beyond the known borders. And this time, Earth might not be the strongest force watching from the dark.
Peace had settled over known space like a calm sea. Trade routes were stable. Former coalition worlds rebuilt. Scientific teams explored sectors once avoided due to military tension. For nearly a year, no major conflict had erupted. That was when the signal arrived. It did not come through normal communication channels. It did not follow known physics. It appeared everywhere at once.
On Earth, on former coalition worlds, on deep space monitoring stations. A repeating pulse. Mathematical. Deliberate. Admiral Chen stood in the Galactic Defense Command Center as analysts rushed around her. "Source?" she asked. "We don't know," a technician replied. "It's not coming from a single point. It's overlapping space itself." Dr. Martinez studied the waveform. Her face slowly lost color. "This isn't a greeting," she said quietly. "What is it?" Chen asked. Martinez zoomed in on the signal pattern. "It's a map." The holographic display shifted, coordinates formed. Not inside known space, beyond it, far beyond the edges of coalition charts. "How far?" Chen asked. "Approximately 20,000 light-years outside mapped territory." Silence fell over the room. "Could it be natural phenomenon?" Captain Torres suggested. Martinez shook her head. "No, it's structured, repeating, it's meant to be found." Within hours, every major government in the alliance was informed. Emergency council session called. In New York, the Galactic Council chamber filled with tension. High Commander Vexar, now a civilian representative rather than military ruler, spoke first. "This is a threat," he said bluntly. "No species announces itself by bypassing all known defenses." Ambassador Rodriguez remained calm. "Or it is a test, a species measuring our reaction." General Fexenor leaned forward. "If it can override our monitoring networks, it is already more advanced than the old coalition ever was." That truth hung heavily in the air. Earth had become the stabilizing force in the galaxy, but beyond their borders might exist something older, stronger, watching. "Do we respond?" a Kilari delegate asked. Chen answered carefully. "We do not respond blindly, we investigate." A decision was made. A single exploration fleet would travel to the edge of known space. Not a war fleet, a diplomatic one. Heavily protected, but not aggressive. The flagship Resolute Dawn prepared for departure once more. This time, not for war, for uncertainty. As the fleet activated its quantum drive, Martinez stood beside Chen. "If this species is hostile," Martinez said quietly, "our hidden defenses may not matter." Chen nodded. "Then we learn quickly." The journey took minutes through quantum gateways. The edge of mapped space was silent, dark, no stars nearby, no colonies. Then sensors detected something impossible, a structure, not a ship, not a station, a construct larger than a planet floating in deep interstellar void. It did not emit power signatures. It did not move. It simply existed. Captain Torres stared at the readings. "It's ancient," he whispered. "How ancient?" Chen asked. "Older than the coalition, older than recorded history." Suddenly, the structure activated. A wave of energy pulsed outward, not destructive, but scanning. Every system on the human fleet flickered. For a brief moment, Chen felt something she had not felt since the first coalition invasion: uncertainty. A voice, not through speakers, but directly through every translated system, spoke calmly. "Species designation, human." The bridge froze. "Your expansion has been noted." Chen steadied herself. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of Earth. Identify yourself." A pause. "We are the custodians." The word echoed strangely. "We observe emerging civilizations. You have altered regional power structures. You have enforced peace through dominance." Chen's jaw tightened. "We defended ourselves. You reshaped a sector through calculated intimidation, not accusation, observation. We maintain balance. Species that destabilize large-scale equilibrium are corrected." Torres whispered, "Corrected?" The structure pulsed again. On the main screen, images appeared. Civilizations rising, expanding, then vanishing. Entire star systems reduced to dust. "They're judges," Martinez breathed. Chen's heart pounded, but her voice remained steady. "What do you want from us?" "Assessment." Silence stretched. "You prevented further warfare," the custodian voice said. "You exercised restraint despite capacity for extinction-level retaliation." Another pulse. "However, your continued dominance will be evaluated." Fexmore's warning echoed in Chen's mind. There is always something stronger. "Evaluated how?" Chen asked. "If your governance promotes long-term stability without exponential militarization, you will be permitted expansion. And if not," the pause this time felt heavier, "correction." The structure powered down slightly, though its presence remained overwhelming. "You have been observed for 3 standard cycles. Observation will continue." The signal faded. The massive construct drifted silently once more. On the bridge, no one spoke for several seconds. Finally, Torres exhaled slowly. "They could erase us." "Yes," Chen replied quietly. "And they didn't." She turned to Martinez. "They were watching during the coalition conflict." Martinez nodded. "Likely." Chen felt the weight of leadership settle differently now. Earth had become protector of its region, but someone else protected something larger: balance. As the fleet prepared to return home, Chen understood something deeply important. Earth was no longer proving strength to its neighbors. It was proving maturity to something ancient. But observation cuts both ways, because while the custodians judged humanity's future, some within the galaxy began to wonder, what if Earth refused to be judged at all?
The return of the resolute dawn was quiet. No victory celebration, no public broadcast. The encounter with the custodians was classified at the highest level, shared only with senior leaders across the Alliance. Inside the Galactic Council chamber, the atmosphere was heavier than it had been during the Coalition's surrender. High Commander Vexar spoke first. "So we are not the highest authority in this region," he said slowly. "We are subjects of observation." "Not subjects," Ambassador Rodriguez corrected. "Participants." General Fexmore gave a sharp look. "They showed us civilizations erased from existence." "Yes," Admiral Chen replied calmly, "civilizations that destabilized everything around them." The Kalari delegate shimmered with uneasy light. "And how do they define destabilization?" No one had a clear answer. Dr. Martinez displayed the recorded data from the encounter. The ancient structure's energy signatures were beyond anything humanity or the old coalition could produce. "If they wished to correct us now," Martinez said, "we would not be having this discussion." "Then why warn us?" Vexar asked. Chen folded her hands on the table. "Because they are measuring response." Silence followed. For years, Earth had enforced peace through visible strength and hidden weapons. The galaxy respected them, some feared them, but now the idea that a higher power was judging their behavior created tension. Fexmore finally voiced what others were thinking. "We could expand our military again," he said, quietly, "prepare for a possible custodian conflict." Chen shook her head immediately. "And prove their concern correct? We cannot rely on mercy from something ancient," Fexmore insisted. Rodriguez leaned forward. "They did not threaten randomly. They referenced restraint." That word echoed again. Restraint. It had saved the coalition from extinction. Now it might save humanity from correction. Over the next weeks, debates continued across Alliance worlds. Some leaders argued for strengthening defenses beyond current levels. Others urged reducing visible militarization to avoid appearing aggressive. Meanwhile, the custodians remained silent, watching. On Earth, public life continued normally. Citizens were unaware that something far older than their species was evaluating their future. Admiral Chen stood once more on the observation deck overlooking Earth. The planet looked just as it had the day the Coalition first invaded, small, blue, peaceful. But now she knew something deeper. Strength had won them survival. Restraint had earned them influence. Maturity might earn them longevity. Captain Torres joined her quietly. "Do you think they'll attack?" he asked. Chen did not answer immediately. "No," she said finally, "not unless we give them reason." And what would count as reason? She looked at the stars. Expansion without responsibility, militarization without cause, domination without consent. Torres nodded slowly. "So we lead carefully." "Yes." Months passed. Human fleets remained active, but not larger. Scientific missions increased. Joint exploration teams formed between species. Instead of building more weapons, Earth invested heavily in shared infrastructure, faster trade routes, shared energy grids, cultural exchange programs. Every major decision was documented transparently. If the custodians were watching, Earth wanted them to see cooperation, not conquest. 1 year later, another signal appeared. This time it was smaller, localized, only received by the Galactic Council chamber. The same calm voice echoed through the room. Assessment cycle complete. Every leader held their breath. Human-led alliance has demonstrated stable expansion parameters. Militarization levels remain proportionate to defensive necessity. A pause. Continued observation required. Vexar exhaled softly. "Is that approval?" Fexmore muttered. Rodriguez allowed herself a faint smile. "It's not correction." The custodian voice continued. "You have chosen influence through integration rather than domination. This reduces systemic volatility." Chen stood tall. "We intend to continue. Your species displays adaptive learning patterns. This is favorable." Another pause. "Know this, we do not seek control. We seek equilibrium." The signal faded. For the first time since encountering the ancient construct, the council chamber felt lighter. They were not free from observation, but they were not condemned. Earth had passed its first evaluation. Still, Chen understood something critical. Passing once did not guarantee forever. Peace had to be maintained, not through fear, through balance. Later that evening, she recorded a private message for historical archives. "Humanity once survived by fighting harder than anyone else. Then we survived by thinking smarter. Now we survive by choosing wisely." Outside her window, ships of dozens of species crossed the sky in peaceful patterns. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers, full of watchers. But for now, Earth stood not as conqueror, nor as rebel, but as steward. But balance is fragile, and far beyond even the custodian's sight, something else was beginning to stir that no one, human or ancient, had predicted.
For 2 full years, the galaxy remained stable. Trade expanded deeper into unmapped sectors. Former coalition worlds thrived under cooperative governance. Scientific breakthroughs accelerated at a pace no one had imagined possible. The custodians did not interfere again. Their silence became a strange comfort, until the anomalies began. At first, it was small. A mining station on the edge of Alliance territory lost contact. No distress call, no explosion, just silence. Rescue ships arrived to find the station intact, powered, empty. Every worker gone. No bodies, no signs of struggle. It was dismissed as an isolated mystery. Then it happened again. A research outpost vanished, not destroyed, but missing. The space it occupied showed unusual gravitational distortion, as if reality had folded briefly and snapped back. Admiral Chen stood in the command center, watching the anomaly reports stack up. "Are the custodians involved?" Torres asked. Dr. Martinez shook her head slowly. "Energy signature doesn't match theirs." That was worse. Within weeks, 4 more incidents occurred, always on the outer edges, always without warning. Ships disappeared mid-transit, planet-side facilities emptied. Sensors recorded momentary spikes in subspace frequencies, frequencies no known civilization used. Fear spread quietly among Alliance worlds. This was not war, it was something else, a pattern. Chen requested direct communication with the custodians. The ancient structure responded faster than before. "You have detected irregularities," the custodian voice said. "Yes," Chen replied, "they do not match your activity." "Correct." The word echoed coldly. "Then what are we facing?" Vexar demanded. There was a long pause before the custodian responded. "A species beyond our monitored boundary has begun expansion." Silence filled the chamber. "Another observer civilization?" Rodriguez asked carefully. "Negative." The next word felt heavier. "Predatory." A projection appeared in the center of the chamber. Star systems darkened, civilizations erased, not conquered, consumed. The energy signatures were chaotic, unstable, unlike the custodian's precise corrections. "These entities do not seek balance," the custodian explained. "They consume energy-dense systems to sustain exponential growth." "Why haven't you stopped them?" Fexmore asked sharply. "We are not omnipotent," the custodian replied calmly. "Our resources are finite. Our perimeter was breached recently." Chen felt a chill. "You're saying they're stronger than you?" "Not stronger, numerous." A map expanded outward. The disturbances were moving inward, toward Alliance space, toward Earth. "How long?" Chen asked quietly. "Estimated arrival at your outer colonies, 3 standard cycles." 3 years, the same number that had defined every turning point before. Rodriguez spoke slowly. "You judged us for destabilization." "We correct imbalance," the custodian said. "And this," she pressed, "this is extinction-level consumption." The room fell silent. For the first time, humanity and the custodians were not in a quiet evaluation. They were on the same side of a growing storm. "How do you propose?" Chen asked. "Cooperation," the custodian replied. That word carried weight. The ancient judges were asking for partnership. Martinez leaned forward. "Your technology exceeds ours in some areas. Ours exceeds yours in adaptability." "Accurate," the custodian confirmed. Chen made her decision quickly. "Then we combine strengths." Fexmore looked surprised, but not opposed. For once, war would not be about dominance, it would be about survival. The custodian projection shifted. "You must prepare without triggering systemic panic. Premature militarization may cause internal destabilization." Chen nodded. "We'll begin defensive upgrades under infrastructure programs. Hidden quantum weapons will be recalibrated. Alliance fleets quietly expanded, but presented publicly as exploration initiatives. Research labs shifted focus toward energy disruption fields and counter-gravitational stabilization. For the first time in history, humans and an ancient civilization shared data openly. The custodians provided insight into deep space physics far beyond human understanding. Humans shared rapid production methods and adaptive tactical algorithms. Together, they built something new, a joint defense grid extending across Alliance borders. Still, Chen understood one painful truth. Even united, they did not know if it would be enough. In the farthest dark regions of space, long-range sensors finally captured a clear image. It was not a fleet, it was a swarm. Thousands, no, millions of organic mechanical vessels moving in chaotic formation. They did not communicate through signals, they pulsed through raw energy exchange. And wherever they passed, stars dimmed, not destroyed immediately, drained. Torres stared at the feed in disbelief.
They're not conquering systems. They're feeding, Martinez whispered. The custodian voice returned, softer now. They have entered our extended boundary. Chen straightened. Then we hold the line. For the first time since the Coalition invasion, the galaxy faced something that could not be reasoned with, not negotiated, not warned. And this time, Earth's famous message, attack us again and be destroyed, might not be enough. Because when the swarm finally crossed into Alliance space, humanity would discover that defending against hunger is very different from defending against hatred.
The first star went dark without an explosion. It simply faded. Outer Colony Helios 9 sent one final transmission. Energy output collapsing. Something is static. Silence. Long-range telescopes captured the impossible. The star was not destroyed. It was being drained. Around it moved the swarm, millions of biomechanical vessels, each one shaped like jagged fragments of metal and living tissue fused together. They did not fly in formation. They moved like a living storm. Chaotic. Hungry. Admiral Chen stood in the Galactic Defense Command Center as alerts flooded the system. Outer colonies evacuating, Torres reported. Civilian transports moving through quantum gateways. Joint custodian grid is online, Martinez added. Energy barriers deployed across 5 sectors. On the main screen, the first defensive line activated. A network of quantum-stabilized satellites powered up, forming a luminous shield between Alliance space and the incoming swarm. For a moment, hope flickered. Then, the swarm touched the barrier. Instead of retreating, the vessels attached themselves to it. They began feeding. Energy drain rate increasing exponentially, Martinez shouted. They're consuming the barrier itself, Torres said. The shield flickered violently. Release counterpulse, Chen ordered. Human custodian hybrid cannons fired beams of compressed quantum disruption. Thousands of swarm vessels disintegrated instantly. But for every 1,000 destroyed, tens of thousands surged forward. They don't react to losses, Vexar observed from the council feed. No retreat, no fear. They don't value individual units. They value consumption. The first barrier collapsed. Swarm elements slipped through, heading toward inhabited systems. Deploy rapid response fleets, Chen commanded. Black human warships emerged from gateways alongside custodian constructs that shimmered with geometric precision. It was the first time the galaxy had seen the ancient observers fight openly. Custodian weapons sliced through swarms with terrifying efficiency. Human phase cannons followed, adapting targeting patterns in real time. For a moment, it looked balanced. Then the swarm adapted. Energy pulses shifted frequency. Vessels began resonating at harmonic levels that reduced weapon impact. They're learning, Martinez whispered. So do we, Chen replied sharply. Human tactical AI recalculated mid-battle. Custodian systems integrated human unpredictability algorithms. Together, their fire patterns changed, less uniform, more chaotic. The swarm's forward motion slowed, but it did not stop. On Helios 12, a civilian evacuation convoy was caught between 2 advancing swarm clusters. Admiral, transports can't jump, gravitational distortion too high, Torres warned. Chen made a decision instantly. Redirect flagship and escorts. We hold the corridor. That's suicide range, a junior officer said. Chen's voice hardened. Not if we control the geometry. The Resolute Dawn jumped directly into the swarm's path. Phase cannons fired continuously, carving a temporary tunnel through the mass. Custodian constructs projected stabilization fields, forcing space-time into rigid alignment. Transports, jump now, Chen shouted. One by one, civilian ships vanished into quantum space. The last transport cleared just as swarm vessels slammed into the flagship's shields. Alarms screamed. Hull integrity dropping. "They're attaching to us," Torres yelled. On the outer hull, biomechanical drones latched onto the ship, drilling through armor to siphon energy. Chen felt the tremor through the deck. "Full reactor overload on outer plating," she ordered calmly. "That'll burn half the hull." "Do it." The ship's exterior ignited in a burst of blinding light. Attached swarm drones vaporized instantly. The flagship emerged scorched, but alive. Around them, the combined Alliance fleet pushed the swarm back beyond the second defensive ring. For now. In the council chamber, silence hung heavy. "We saved the colonies," Vexar said quietly. "Yes," Chen replied. "But at cost," Martinez added. "Energy reserves across 3 sectors critically low. The swarm consumed more than expected." The custodian voice resonated across the chamber. "They test resistance levels." "They're probing," Chen said. "Correct." A new projection appeared. Multiple swarm clusters were spreading along different vectors. Not random, strategic. "They're dividing," Torres whispered. "Trying to overwhelm multiple sectors simultaneously." Chen understood the implication. They were not facing a single attack. They were facing a spreading hunger. And hunger did not negotiate. Chen turned to the council. "We cannot defend every star individually." "Then what do we do?" Thexmore demanded. Chen looked at Martinez. "Can we starve them?" Martinez hesitated. "They consume energy-rich systems, stars, reactors, gravitational wells." Chen's mind raced. "What if we give them something they can't digest?" The custodian voice responded. "Elaborate." Martinez's eyes widened slowly. "A controlled quantum cascade. Overload a system's energy output beyond stable absorption." Vexar stiffened. "You mean weaponize a star?" "Yes," Chen said quietly. The room fell silent again. "It would mean sacrificing an uninhabited system, detonating it deliberately, using it as bait." The custodian paused longer than before. "High risk, high yield." Chen looked at the map. The swarm was advancing steadily. If they failed, stars would continue to dim. If they succeeded, they might cripple the swarm's core feeding cluster. She straightened. "Prepare Operation Starfall." For the first time since the swarm appeared, humanity was not simply reacting. They were planning a strike, not out of anger, not out of dominance, but to protect everything they had built. But detonating a star is not just a weapon, it's a gamble with the fabric of space itself. And if Starfall failed, there would be nothing left to defend.
The target system was uninhabited. No colonies, no life-bearing worlds, just a large blue-white star and a ring of barren planets. It was perfect, or as perfect as sacrificing a son could ever be. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Resolute Dawn, watching the holographic projection of the system rotate slowly in front of her. "Swarm advance vectors confirm interception in 42 hours, Captain Torres reported. Dr. Martinez adjusted the simulation. "If we trigger the cascade too early, they won't commit enough mass. Too late, and we lose the chance." The custodian construct hovered nearby, its geometric surface shifting as it calculated probabilities beyond human comprehension. "Optimal detonation window 3.4 seconds after primary cluster density peak," the custodian said. 3.4 seconds, Torres repeated softly. "That's all we get." The plan was simple in theory. Human and custodian vessels would seed the star's core with quantum destabilizers, devices capable of forcing a temporary hyperfusion spike, not a full supernova, something worse. A controlled cascade that would create an energy pulse too chaotic for the swarm to absorb. Instead of feeding, they would overload. The risk was enormous. If miscalculated, the star could go fully unstable, a real supernova.
The shock wave would reach Alliance borders. Billions could die. Chen addressed the fleet-wide channel. This operation is voluntary. Once the destabilizers are deployed, retreat paths narrow. We are not attacking out of anger. We are protecting every system behind us. No one withdrew. Human crews, former coalition pilots, even custodian constructs aligned in formation. For the first time in recorded galactic history, three once separate powers stood unified. The swarm arrived sooner than expected. Like a storm of living metal, it poured into the outer system, immediately beginning to siphon energy from the star's corona. "They're accelerating feeding rate," Martinez warned. "Star output dropping 12% already." "Hold position," Chen ordered. The swarm did not recognize threat. It recognized food. That was its weakness. Human ships darted in close, releasing destabilizer probes directly into the stellar plasma. Custodian constructs projected containment geometries, ensuring the cascade would remain localized. Swarm vessels swarmed the probes, attempting to consume them. "Core saturation at 60%, Torres said. The star began to pulse unnaturally. Light flickered. Gravitational waves rippled outward. "They're committing more mass," Martinez said, her voice tight. 80% of the cluster now feeding." "Wait," Chen whispered. The bridge trembled as swarm drones slammed into outer defense ships. Alliance ships fought defensively, not to destroy, but to hold position. 90% cluster density, the custodian reported. Chen watched the timer count down. "Stand by." The star's surface flared violently, unnatural patterns crawling across it like lightning frozen in place. "Peak density in 5, 4. Swarm vessels packed tighter around the star, drawn by the increasing energy output. 3. The star's core destabilized. 2. Chen closed her eyes briefly. 1. Trigger cascade. Every destabilizer activated at once. The star screamed, not in sound, but in force. A blinding column of hyper-compressed fusion energy erupted outward, far beyond natural solar flares. The swarm did not retreat. It absorbed. For a fraction of a second, then the overload hit. Swarm vessels began detonating in chain reactions, unable to regulate the chaotic energy spike. Entire clusters disintegrated. The core feeding mass vaporized instantly. Shock waves tore through space-time. Alliance ships barely escaped the expanding energy front. "Containment field holding," Martinez shouted. The custodian constructs reinforced the geometric lattice around the star. Instead of full collapse, the cascade stabilized into a smaller but stable white dwarf state. The system survived, barely. On the main display, the swarm's primary cluster was gone, millions of vessels erased, remaining fragments scattered chaotically, retreating beyond the outer perimeter. For the first time, the swarm moved away. Silence filled the bridge. Torres exhaled shakily. "We did it!" Chen stared at the data. "We wounded them," she corrected. The custodian voice resonated through the fleet. "Predatory expansion rate reduced by 37%. Strategic withdrawal detected." "Yes," Vexar's voice echoed through the council channel. "Yes," Chen replied quietly. "But now they know we bite back." Alliance fleets regrouped, battered but intact. Losses were significant, but no inhabited worlds had fallen. The first major wave had been stopped. In the quiet after the battle, Chen recorded a message for all Alliance citizens. "We faced something that consumes without hate, without negotiation, without reason. We survived not because we were the strongest alone, but because we stood together." Behind her, the dimmed star glowed faintly, a reminder of the cost. The custodian structure transmitted one final assessment. Joint response effective. Adaptation confirmed. For once, the ancient voice carried something almost like respect. Chen allowed herself a small smile. Humanity had once been judged. Now it had helped protect even its judges. But she knew something else. The swarm was not destroyed. It was learning, and next time it would not underestimate them. The galaxy survived the first wave, but the final confrontation would decide whether humanity remained guardians of peace or became something far more dangerous.
The swarm did not return immediately. It retreated beyond detectable range, scattering into dark space like embers blown by cosmic wind. But everyone knew it was not gone. It was adapting, and so were they. Months passed after Operation Starfall. Alliance fleets repaired, energy grids stabilized. The wounded white dwarf star remained under custodian monitoring, a scar in space, proof that desperation could become strategy. Yet something had changed, not just in the swarm, in humanity. Across Alliance systems, debates began quietly. If one star could wound the swarm, what could 10 do? 20? Some military strategists proposed expanding Starfall into a full-scale offensive doctrine. Preemptive system detonations along predicted swarm routes. Burn empty sectors before the swarm could consume them. Deny them food, General Fexmore argued during one high-level session. Turn space itself into a weapon. Others hesitated. That path destroys what we are protecting, Ambassador Rodriguez replied. We become the very destabilizing force the custodians warned us about. Admiral Chen listened more than she spoke. She understood both sides. Every projection showed the swarm's growth curve. Even reduced by 37%, its potential recovery rate remained alarming. A second wave could come stronger, faster, and if Earth hesitated, entire civilizations might vanish. One evening, Chen stood alone inside the quiet observation chamber overlooking Earth. The planet glowed peacefully below. Children laughed somewhere in cities she could not hear. Families lived ordinary lives because difficult decisions were made in silence. Her communicator activated. The custodian voice resonated gently. You contemplate escalation. Yes, Chen answered honestly. Probability models indicate that large-scale stellar weaponization would repel the swarm more rapidly and destabilize half the galaxy in the process, she replied. Correct. Chen folded her arms. If we burn stars to stop them, we save ourselves but cripple future generations. Your species prioritizes long-term continuity over short-term dominance, the custodian observed. We've learned, she said softly. There was a pause. Then something unexpected. We have analyzed swarm core structure. It is decentralized but energy-dependent. Starfall introduced instability into their absorption process. Chen's eyes sharpened. You found something. Correction, we found something together. A new projection appeared. Deep inside the swarm's energy matrix existed a resonance frequency introduced during starfall, an instability that spread between vessels when they shared energy, a vulnerability. If amplified, Martinez's voice joined through the channel, having been patched into the feed. We could trigger cascade failures across the swarm without destroying stars. Chen felt a surge of hope. How? Instead of detonating suns, Martinez explained, we overload their internal distribution network. We let them consume a tailored energy signature, one that spreads collapse. Fexmore, listening in remotely, spoke carefully. You're suggesting we feed them poison? Martinez nodded. Yes, but controlled. The custodian added, joint human adaptive algorithms and custodian structural mapping increase success probability to 62%. Not certain, but far better than burning the galaxy. Chen made her decision. We do not scorch our future to win today, she said firmly. We strike at the root.
Operation Silent Eclipse began. Instead of gathering destabilizers, Alliance fleets deployed modified quantum emitters designed to broadcast the destabilizing resonance discovered in starfall. They did not attack stars, they attacked hunger itself. When the swarm returned, because it did, the Alliance was ready. This time, fleets did not meet it head-on. They withdrew strategically, allowing swarm clusters to approach pre-seeded energy beacons. The swarm fed eagerly. And then, the resonance triggered. It spread invisibly through the swarm's internal network. At first, nothing happened. Then vessels began shutting down mid-consumption. Energy transfer chains reversed. Instead of distributing power, they amplified instability. Clusters imploded silently. Entire sections of the swarm collapsed inward, not from explosion, but structural failure. The decentralized intelligence could not compensate fast enough. For the first time, the swarm retreated not from force, but from dysfunction. Weeks of targeted resonance strikes followed. Each encounter weakened the swarm further. Finally, long-range monitoring confirmed what once seemed impossible. The swarm's expansion halted. Residual fragments drifted into deep interstellar space, no longer coordinated, no longer consuming. Not fully destroyed, but neutralized. The galaxy breathed again. In the Galactic Council chamber, leaders gathered not in panic, but in reflection. High Commander Vexar looked at Chen. "You could have burned stars." "Yes," she replied. "You chose not to." Chen looked around the chamber at humans, former coalition species, Kalari, and even the silent custodian projection. "We chose to protect tomorrow." The custodian voice resonated one final time. Assessment complete. Every heart in the chamber paused. Human-led alliance demonstrates adaptive restraint under existential threat. Long-term equilibrium probability increased. A brief pause. Custodian oversight in this sector will transition to advisory status. Murmurs filled the chamber. "You're stepping back?" Rodriguez asked. "You have demonstrated capacity to maintain balance." For the first time, humanity was not being judged. They were being trusted. Years later, historians would look back at three defining moments. The day Earth warned the galaxy, the day Earth enforced its warning, and the day Earth refused to become what it feared. Admiral Chen recorded her final address before retiring. "We were attacked, and we defended ourselves. We were tested, and we proved our strength. But our greatest victory was not in destroying enemies. It was in choosing what kind of power we wanted to be." Above Earth, ships from dozens of species crossed peaceful skies. The hidden weapons still existed, but they remained silent. Not because humanity lacked strength, but because it had learned control. The galaxy had once received Earth's warning loud and clear: attack us again and be destroyed. Now it carried a second message just as powerful: stand with us and we will endure together. And in the vast darkness beyond the stars, the universe continued expanding. Balanced, protected, and finally, at peace. May this message strengthen your faith and renew your hope. Thank you for staying until the end. If this touched your heart, like, share, and subscribe to Astro Realms for more uplifting content. May God's blessings overflow in your life. See you soon.